Thanks, Ciarán Corla, and thanks to the Minister for coming this evening, and thanks previously to Minister Rabbitte and Minister Butler for also taking the questions on behalf of Minister Donnelly. Someday I might get lucky, he might actually be able to get here himself and debate these issues we're raising. Initially, Minister, I'd just like to raise the following points. We know that our health services are stretched. That's evidenced in the significant waiting lists in various areas within under health. The pandemic also, has taken its toll on the workforce, and they are dealing with significant backlogs on foot of the pandemic. And there's also many employees, and particularly I think we're facing a cliff edge of retirements with GPs coming up in the next few years. And there's many of those employees are approaching retirement, and it's going to create significant challenges for staffing. There's also many younger professionals who are looking for better working conditions and a better work-life balance. And these are all issues I know that the Department of Health and the HSE are juggling. And we do have also a reliance on agency staff in many areas, in particular nursing. But despite all this, we're repeatedly told that money is not an issue, and that's evidenced in the record budget that we had again last year, 22 billion, I think, at this stage. And we know that the HSE, and it's inescapable truth, they are recruiting record numbers of staff. That is a fact. But unfortunately, that recruitment is not keeping pace with the demand, and particularly with the backlog and waiting lists that we're all familiar with. And there's particular difficulties in recruitment in areas such as consultants, nursing, particularly specialised nurses, therapists, psychologists, and there's also a significant shortage or inability to recruit, particularly in those areas. So look, I'd just like to read a couple of stats that I've accumulated over the last couple of weeks in terms of written PQ responses. I'm looking at clinical genetics in Crumlin and St James's. 5 posts have been filled, thankfully, but 2 vacant. So that's nearly 1 in 3 posts unfilled. 391 Irish doctors granted working visas in Australia in the last year. 837 consultant posts not filled on a permanent basis. 9 is the number of highly remunerated consultant posts advertised last year, and none were filled at all. 4,787 is the number of older people without a carer due to chronic staff shortage. 5 unfilled posts in breast check last year. 63 psychiatry consultant posts unfilled as well. In relation to CAM services, waiting lists have increased significantly, I think about 23%. In response to PQs that I've written, I suppose you get the same kind of mundane response, detailing long-standing workforce challenges and so on. I was here again a number of weeks ago with Minister Butler, and I was talking specifically about the area of type 1 diabetes for paediatric patients. And specifically, I think the issue was to do with the delay in insulin pumps. But again, 2 additional diabetes nurses specialists were advertised in Cork. 1 advanced nurse practitioner, still those posts remain unfilled. In 2022, the Cork Kerry Community Healthcare area received an additional 14.5 posts for its CD&T teams. We have no information on any of those posts being filled. And another issue I raised here previously was in relation to home care workers. And specifically at my last Cork Kerry HSE briefing in Ballincollig, we could see from the details presented to us that morning that it takes 7 to 8 months to hire a home care worker. Now, if I was a home care worker, which is predominantly part-time work, and I was waiting 7 or 8 months to be told that I was getting a job, I would have probably found a different job in that 7 or 8 months. So there's clearly, an issue here in terms of recruitment. I'm just wondering, what are we going to do with it?
Minister Fian.
Thank you, and I want to thank you, Deputy O'Sullivan, for giving me the opportunity to update the House on this very important matter. And recruitment and retention of health and social care workers is a top priority, and Budget 2022, as you outlined, provided funding for a large expansion of the health workforce, up to an additional 11,369 whole-time equivalents, reflecting the Government's ambition and desire to invest in our health services and to ensure health services are appropriately staffed. The HSE have identified a minimum recruitment target of 5,500 whole-time equivalents alongside a more challenging stretch target of 11,369 whole-time equivalents to be hired in 2022. Employment levels at the end of May 2022 showed that there was 134,711 whole-time equivalents, equating to 153,578 personnel directly employed in provision of health and social care services by the HSE and the various Section 38 hospitals and agencies. This is due to an unprecedented growth rate during the last 3 years. Since 2019, the workforce has grown by a record 14,893 whole-time equivalents, or 12.4%. In addition to this, approximately 3,000 were recruited in 2020 and 2021 through third-party agencies for COVID-related roles such as vaccinators and contract tracers. The workforce has grown by a total of 2,387 whole-time equivalents in the period since the end of 2021 to the end of May this year, with an increase of 138 whole-time equivalents in May alone. Officials in the Department are working with the HSE on actions including the HSE's Resourcing Strategy 2022, which sets out a suite of actions to address recruitment challenges. It sets out the HSE overarching governance and oversight arrangements in place to monitor on a monthly basis performance against the target. In relation to hard-to-fill posts, a small HSE subgroup has been established which is developing pathways for filling of difficult-to-fill posts for various categories of health professionals. This includes international pathways together with grow-your-own strategies where they are not available internationally. The HSE has developed a relocation package to ease international recruitment across all grades, and following a Department of Health business case to the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, the critical skills list has been expanded to facilitate international recruitment of pharmacists, cardiac physiologists, medical scientists, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, podiatrists, chiropodists, psychologists and speech and language therapists. The HSE is reviewing international recruitment of specialist posts such as nursing and midwifery specialists, with further actions identified to expedite recruitment. Targeted work is ongoing in relation to the recruitment of medical consultants, which include a streamlining of the recruitment process to reduce the time to hire and focusing on existing consultant posts that are challenging to fill and developing targeted strategy around these posts. This is inclusive of the development of marketing material to attract applications to certain locations and direct links with the medical training bodies. A microsite is also in development to increase international reach. I would like to conclude by assuring you, Deputy, of the Minister's ongoing commitment to working with the HSE to address recruitment challenges.
Yeah, thanks, Cian Corla. Minister, look, just thanks for the response. There are two questions I'd have in relation specifically to the response, and then I'll conclude with a few other remarks. But the first one, the HSE have identified a minimum recruitment target of 5,500 whole-time equivalents alongside a more challenging stretch target. Like, what is a stretch target? Can you actually tell me what that means? Are we saying that 5,500 is to keep things running as they are now, which is, chaotic at times? We're well familiar with, A&E over the last couple of weeks, particularly in certain regional hospitals. So what is a stretch target? I'd love to know what the definition of it is, or how we get from 5,500 to 11,000. Like, somewhere in the middle is 6, 7, 8,000 a success. I'd just love to know if there's any clarity you can give me on that. The second thing is in relation to the HSE is reviewing international recruitment of specialist posts such as nursing, midwifery, with further actions identified to expedite recruitment. Could you outline what those further actions are? I'd love to know what actions specifically are being taken. Are we going to road shows right across the world? Are we going attending exhibitions? Are we in the universities right across the world? I'd love to know what specific actions that further actions references. And just to conclude more generally, look, the majority of us here, we're doing our weekly clinics. I'm party spokesperson for Fianna Fáil on special education, and it's well documented at this stage that people are waiting 2 and 3 years for a physio appointment from their CDNT team. People are waiting 2, 3, 4 years if they're lucky for a speech language therapist to come and see them. There are clearly difficulties there, and in my opening statement I did acknowledge that we are hiring more staff than ever in the HSE, but it's clearly not sufficient. And there's nothing drives me more demented inside here is to see budget underspends and funding not drawn down. And I think we need to do more. I think we need to go out internationally. I think we need to look at waiving working visas for non-EU applicants. I think we need to throw the kitchen sink at it. So I'd appreciate any further feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. And stretch targets, I understand, is a target that makes the organisations to alter the process to get the result that they want to achieve. I understand that's what a stretch target is. That's my...
It's not, Minister, that you're armed with gobbledygook and verbiage to come in and answer a fairly straightforward question. It's not your fault now, but whoever writes those could maybe do a training course in basic English and communication.
I
might recommend that to the HSE or department officials.
I'll bring your views back to the department.
Thank you very much, Minister.